to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show, 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So when I learned how to scuba dive, they were pretty adamant about not flying 12 hours after you do a single dive. If you did multiple dives, don't have a flight the next day. Wait at least 24 hours. And the reason why is because there could be decompression sickness and other issues that could happen during an ascent. Well, this was a pretty scary case, and this is something a little different. This is where a man died while he was snorkeling, and they believe it was because of the flight prior. So usually we don't want you flying after a dive. This is something a little different. He died snorkeling a few days after a long flight. So a Michigan woman has launched a lawsuit against multiple Hawaii authorities after her husband of 38 years died while snorkeling. She is suing the Fairmont Kealani Resort, the Hawaiian Tourism Authority, and Hawaii Visitors and Convention Bureau after her husband, Ray Johnson, died. And it was ruled a drowning. She believes, this is being reported by Daily Mail, that it wasn't a traditional drowning, but was rope. Rope is rapid onset pulmonary edema, and that might have been exacerbated by the recent flight. Dr. Mylin Han, chief of pulmonary and critical care medicine at the University of Michigan, said what long haul flights do is it has an effect on your lungs. After 3 days, you are back to normal. But if you snorkel after that long flight, there is a substantial increased risk of death. So in her lawsuit, the wife alleges that all three of the defendants had failed to educate the public about the potential dangers of rope. She says, I don't want other people to go through what we have gone through and to lose a family member. She said it's heartbreaking and it's avoidable. So she said minutes before he died, he was snorkeling with friends around Wailea Beach. It's in front of the resort. She realized something wasn't right. She noticed other snorkelers helping him as he was trying to keep his head above water heading to shore. They yelled, call 911. She ran to the beach. She got onto the beach. They were pulling him out. His head snapped back, and then he was gone. So this is, and they couldn't save him. They're just heartbreaking. Now, the coroner said it was a drowning, but she said she kind of refuses to do so. So why would the coroner say that? Well, if there was fluid in the lungs. But pulmonary edema could be fluid in the lungs. So according to the friends that were with him, they said, I was watching him come in. How could he be drowning? She said, at one point he came up and said, you got to help me. I'm having trouble breathing. And that's when he decided to head back to shore. I don't think when people are drowning in a conditional manner, you're going to be conversing. So rope is a condition in which fluid accumulates in the lungs, making it hard to breathe. The buildup of fluid is caused by a pressure imbalance in the heart and other causes that could send excess fluid to the lungs. Basically, it's all a pumping mechanism. Your heart's a pump. If there's any issues with the pump, there's back pressure. Back pressure causes back flow and then swelling, edema of the lungs. So you could have difficulty breathing, shortness of breath, wheezing, shallow breathing. And so I don't know exactly how long after his flight he went snorkeling. But I mean, if I ever go to Hawaii, it's usually only a week because I have to work. And so I'm not going to sit in a hotel room for 3 days. I hit the beach. Well, if you have a snorkeling trip the next day, maybe you need to rethink that. Now, I'm not saying that was definitely his cause of death, but that is what they believe. Now, there's a couple other things I want to talk about. Dry drowning and secondary drowning. Now, dry drowning is where water touches the first part of your respiratory tree, like your vocal cords. It triggers a reflex. Then you go into laryngospasm. Your vocal cords constrict, and then you can't breathe. It's a defensive mechanism to get water, any more water coming into the lungs. The problem is if you're going into laryngospasm, you could die. So dry drowning is where the water never really officially makes the lungs. It's just you're going into a restrictive breathing pattern. Secondary drowning is where you might inhale, get some water into the lungs while swimming, and then later on, that water irritates your lungs, resulting in pulmonary edema. That could occur hours to days after the water activity. And so, 1 to 2% of drowning incidents could be caused by secondary drowning, where you were having fun in the pool, kids were splashing you, you got some water in you, and then later, because your lungs never cleared it out, you end up swelling and getting edema. Now, I don't want to scare you all, but these are things that you need to understand. So what would be symptoms? Well, cough, chest pain, difficulty breathing, shoulder pain, neck pain, confusion, irritability, behavioral changes, fatigue, difficulty speaking, and kids could dry drown or secondary drown. We always think, well, they have to be underwater and the water has to get into the lungs. No, there could be other things that happen. So you need to be aware. People always ask, why would the shoulders hurt? Well, because your diaphragm, there's a referral nerve from the diaphragm to the shoulder, such that if you do have water in the lungs or any sort of pressure on the diaphragm, you could feel it up in the shoulder. And other sorts of mechanisms with that. So, our hearts and prayers are with the family. Rope syndrome does exist. Make sure, obviously, before you go on any trip, that your heart and lungs are as up to speed as they need to be, and understand that there could be that gradient, that change in pressure that could affect how you do things. And then with scuba diving, you have to have a physical. I believe you have to have a physical before the instructor takes you on certain dives. And I really urge that, because many of us are not as physically fit. If you have asthma, there are certain medical conditions that will prevent you, because when you're underwater, sadly, you could be compromised. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH, don't go away.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 855-SHARE-40. That's 855-SHARE-40. 855-SHARE-40.
Hey guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our Fantasy Football Pocket Guide for Beginners found on Amazon, or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians, only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. And big thanks to Daniel, who is our producer and who is our everything. So there has been some discussion that the term love, when you say I love you or use love, is being overused. It's overrated, overdone. And I'm mixed on that. I like the word love. But I am guilty of using the term love a lot. I tell people I love them all the time. I tell my husband I love him, tell my kids I love them, tell the postal person I love him, tell my doctor I love him, tell Daniel, I love you, man. I love Daniel. He's a god. My producer. I say love, and it's not always, like when I talk to my friends, like when I say goodbye to my friends, I love you. Oh my God, I love you. I can't wait. Oh, really? You can do? Oh my gosh, I love you. I mean, I say that a lot, and so I think people in my life know the difference. When I'm like, I love you. Okay, that's a little different than, oh, love. I love you. Love. And so I get how there's some discussions. There's this one article here. I don't know if I agree with it. I don't think I like it a lot. It says, I love you is overused and overrated. This is from A Conscious Rethink. They say use these 15 phrases instead. Now they're talking about lovey-dovey, like with somebody you love. I am grateful to have you in my life. Yawn. What else? You are the most important person in my life. I don't know. It just doesn't do it for me. I cherish the time we get to spend together. I am devoted to you. Or I told you guys, I actually talked about this. I actually talked about ways to express love without being awkward. Telling a person you love them. And there's different love. There's the love you have for your romantic partner. Okay, you don't want to express love the same way you do with your romantic partner to your kids, to your dog, to your mother, to your friends. So to me, I use different tones. I also will use context. So what I tell my husband, when I tell him I love him, I really love you. I mean, this isn't just love. This is, I love you. I can't even express it. I mean, that it's rather than to my kids, I love you, baby Tushy. I love you so much, my fishy Tushy. I could just eat. Yeah. And my kids know I love them. And then my mom, I love you, mom. Love. I love my mom. But it's not going to be the same way I talk to my husband. And then with the little kitty cats and the doggy, I'm like, oh my God, you little doggy. And then I just do that. And they know I love them because my voice kind of goes up. And so, some of you are dating and you're like, when do I bring this up? When it's awkward to bring up the love part. Yeah. And when everyone's like, oh gosh, how do I bring this up? Well, you could do a poem. If you think the speaking and the talking is going to be too hard, here's a couple poems. All right, hold on. I got something corny for you guys here if you want. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it. I got something scratching me here. Hold on a second. I got all this Mother's Day stuff up on my computer. All right. I got a little poem here. All right. My world was lonely, cold, and dark. Until you brought it light. I love you more than words can say. You make my heart beam bright. Now, I wouldn't really want a poem like that. I like funny poems, or I like limericks. Like There Once Was a Man from Nantucket. Make me laugh, and I love it. You could also do this. Roses are red, violets are blue. I can't write poetry worth blank, but I do love you. I mean, you could do it any way you like. And I think the big apprehension people have is that if they mess up the I love you part, that it is going to wreck them for life. It's going to wreck the relationship. First of all, if that person loves you, it doesn't matter Okay. Just any concept of love, any sort of, is going to be fine. It is. Don't worry. It doesn't have to be this big romantic thing. You don't have to get the writing in the sky, and you can even say, look, I don't want to sound corny. I don't want this to be awkward, but I have been dying for months now to tell you that I love you, and I don't know how to do it. And I just want to express that I love you, and I'm scared that I'm going to mess it up. Done. Already done. It's doable. Now, another thing you guys could do is transition into the love. Transition. If saying I love you is so intimate, it's so deep, and you're like, it's going to come out wrong, then you can use, I say this a lot all the time. I say, love. I guess I'm so busy that I don't have the time to do all 3 syllables. But so you could be like, oh, okay. Oh, I can't wait to see you. Awesome. All right. See you then. Love. Okay. Now they might be like, well, wait a second. Okay. Does that mean I love you? I love you. And then you slowly oh my God, you picked that. I love you. Oh, that's awesome. And then you could slowly start transitioning the more familial I loves to, I really love you. And then, yeah. Okay. Now, what if you're like, Daliah, I'm sorry, the love won't work. I can't say that word. Okay. Well, there's other words. You could say devoted, enchanted, infatuated. I cherish you. I worship you. You don't want to say I'm obsessed. You don't want to say I'm addicted. You don't want to, that just scares people. You don't want to, you don't want to, I stalk you. You don't want to do that, but you could say, you're the most enchanting person you are. I just adore you so, so much. And then they might allow that, what does though really stink is eventually it's love you, love. And then it's just, and so I really like the idea of making it personal. Picture. I think pictures are fantastic. I think drawing pictures for people you love can mean a lot. And it doesn't have to always have hearts. It could be something. It could be also like a little gift. There could be something that, they were talking about, or that, and you could say, this reminds me of you. And then you could give them a little something. There's so many different ways, little creative ways to do this. And then, little gifts, like a playlist of their favorite songs. One thing that could be really romantic is I made a playlist for you. And these are the songs that make me think of you. And then they could be, Baby Got Back. Yeah, I like big butts and I cannot lie. No other brothers will deny. So anyway, so I know the playlist my husband would give me, but there's so many different ways you could do this. So I know they're trying to talk about, well, yeah, love. Everybody's using love now. Love. No, there's ways where you could take a term that is used so frequently and that you might have used so frequently and just make it your own. Make sure you have eye contact, hold their hand, and you can, and by the way, for those of you who have been with your partners for years, you can still tell them you love them. Hold their hand and say, look, I don't say it enough. And I know our lives have gotten so busy, but you need to know I think about you all the time. I have never been as happy as I am. I love my life with you. I love you. I love you so much. And I hope this never ends. And I really am sorry that I don't always express it. It's not easy to express, but you need to know that. And, that's good. I know it's not easy. Now, I look at society trying to change everything up. And maybe, neutralize some of the emotions and some of the, I think it's okay. I think it's fabulous to pray. I think it's fabulous to love the Lord. I think it's fabulous to love. I think it's fabulous to have passions towards things. We're really trying to just gray everything out. And I, but I do like the idea of, I hate Valentine's Day because it commercializes something that's really intimate, Do it any way you can. Like in Ghost, when he said ditto, that meant everything to her. Well, not in the beginning though, remember? 1-877 Doc Daliah, don't go away. Hi guys, Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show, 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So hurricane season is right around the corner, and in fact, some people feel it starts even as early as May. June 1 is the start of hurricane season, but they've been considering moving that to May because sometimes we see some tropical activity and some tropical storm activity in May. Well, what kind of a hurricane season are we going to have this year? Well, Colorado State University researchers always submit their prediction, and we give this prediction to you every year. Last year, it was supposed to be a below normal, below average. This year, they're predicting a record hurricane season, quote, well above average. And it's because of La Niña, which we'll explain in a second. So researchers expect we are going to have 23 named storms, which is well above the 14.4 mean. 11 of these storms are going to be hurricanes. 5 would be classified as major. Now, last year, it was predicted that only 3 were going to be major. Now they're predicting 5 in the Atlantic basin. So June 1st marks the official start. It usually runs to November 30th. But as I said, we've had special tropical weather outlooks that have popped up in May. The most active month is September. August, September are the most common, but September, sadly, we've seen some of the most destructive ones. And hurricanes are categorized by their wind speed. And they're designated by the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. So we don't call it a hurricane until it's over 74 miles an hour. I live in southern Nevada, and sometimes the winds are like 75 miles an hour. We get some big winds here, but sometimes 50 miles an hour. I've seen some pretty bad winds. But it's not a hurricane until after 74 miles an hour. It's a Category 2 once it hits over 96 miles an hour. Category 3 when the winds are 111 miles an hour. Category 4 when it's over 130 miles an hour. And Category 5 when it's over 157 miles an hour. Any of those could cause destruction. But Category 3, you're already having devastating damage. Categories 4 and 5 considered catastrophic. So in any given year, the Atlantic Ocean averages 12 to 14 named storms, 6 becoming hurricanes, 3 becoming major, meaning over Category 3. The fact that they're saying we're going to have 23 named storms, this is concerning. Now, Hurricane Katrina, back in 2005, was in the Gulf as a Category 5. By the time it hit land, it downgraded to a 3, but it still was devastating. It killed over 1,800 people, caused $108 billion in damage. And so it hovered. It didn't move quickly. And so even though it was only a category 3 as opposed to a 5, it still killed. And it still caused the devastation that it did. The deadliest hurricane to ever hit U.S. soil was the Great Galveston Hurricane of 1900. 10,000 people died. And of course, they didn't have the warning systems like they do now. So according to Colorado State University researchers, they said current El Nino conditions are likely to transition to La Nina the summer-fall, leading to hurricane-favorable wind shear conditions. Sea surface temperatures in the eastern and central Atlantic are currently at record warm levels. They are anticipated to remain well above average for the upcoming hurricane season. A warmer than normal tropical Atlantic provides a more conducive dynamic and thermodynamic environment for hurricane formation and intensification. This forecast is of above normal confidence for an early April outlook. I only got this yesterday, but apparently they had reported it in April. They said we anticipate a well above average probability for major hurricanes making landfall along the continental United States coastline and the Caribbean. As with all hurricane seasons, coastal residents are reminded that it only takes one hurricane making landfall to make it an active season. Thorough preparation should be made every season, regardless of predictive activity. So let's say they predicted a lower than normal. They still want you to prepare, which we'll talk about. So we talked about the El Nino, La Nina. El Nino refers to this ocean atmospheric interaction where sea surface temperatures rise near the equatorial Pacific, causing increased wind shear in the Atlantic equatorial region, which causes less than active hurricane seasons. La Nina is the opposite. Below average sea surface temperatures in the Pacific, higher temperatures in the Atlantic. So if you're in a La Nina year, more serious hurricane season. The monsoon activity in Africa also can cause it because most of our storms come off the coast of West Africa. And we have names for this year's hurricane season. Some of us like to bet on which name is going to be, not severe versus which severe. They have Alberto, Beryl, Chris, Hurricane Debbie, Hurricane Ernesto, Hurricane Francine, Gordon, Helene, Isaac, Joyce, Kirk, Leslie, Milton, Nadine, Oscar, Patty, Raphael, Sarah, Tony, Valerie, and William. Okay, I don't know. Beryl, to me, sounds like that could be an issue. Usually the first hurricane doesn't do much, so Alberto, I think, is okay. Hurricane Isaac could be a doozy. I knew a Leslie. She was nice, so I don't think Leslie's going to be too bad. But these hurricane names, if there's a bad one, like Andrew, you don't see Andrew again. You'll never see Katrina. They retire those names. Now, if we run out of names, rather than going to the alpha, beta, or other sorts of, or Greek letters, there are supplemental names. Adria, Braylon, Caridad, Deshaun, Emery, Foster, Gemma, Heath, Isla, Jacobus, Kenzie, Lucio, Michaela, Nolan, Orlando, Pax, Ronan, Sophie, Tayshawn, Viviana, and Will. So they have supplemental names if we run out. Your Pacific names are Aletta, Bud, Hurricane Bud, Carlotta, Daniel, Amelia, Fabio. Fabio, that could be an interesting one. Gilma, Hector, Elena, John, Christy, Lane, Miriam, Norman, Olivia, Paul, Rosa, Sergio, Tara, Vicente, Willa, Xavier, Yolanda, and Zeke. I'd be worried about a Hurricane Zeke. So preparation has to start early. Make sure you have adequate water. You should be doing this anyway, making sure you have water in your house. There were some storms going on, I think in Mississippi and Alabama. Power went out when patients were talking to me. Have at least 1 gallon per day per person for at least a few days. 1/4 to 1/2 gallon per pet, except the fish, although you might have to change out some of the water for the fish. Canned foods, flashlights, medical supply kits, batteries, blankets, cash, medications, and waterproof containers set aside for disaster. Make sure you have important papers and waterproof, fireproof casings. And know your risk. Get on the community warning system. Make sure you have AM radio. right? Because if you're expecting your cell phone to be giving you alerts, if the tower's down, make sure you have AM radio. You could start walling up windows, avoid areas that could flood, protect your property, declutter drains and gutters, install your check valves and plumbing to prevent backups. My mom lived in Florida, and they would fill up the bathtub with water. That's how they would, because they didn't have bottled water. So they would fill up the bathtub for drinking water. I mean, clean the bathtub first, obviously. And they would do that so they had plenty of water if they needed. Turn on your TV, radio. Understand that your TV might not work. Make sure you have your emergency preparedness kit, things like that. Have flood insurance if you can. Flood insurance is not too bad. Keep your car in good working condition. Keep the gas tank full. Also, make sure your vehicle has emergency supply and a change of clothes, just in case you need to get out. Sometimes these hurricanes change direction and your governor says, get out, evacuate, and you don't have a lot of time. Now, I have family in Florida. They usually don't evacuate. And they're, I think, a little higher up. They're not beachfront. But there's many people who sadly are going to be in the path of these things. So 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away.
Considered by most, optimized curcumin is one of the few bioavailable and highly absorbable curcumin products on the market. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch. Since most chronic diseases have inflammation, our optimized curcumin seems to be a perfect addition to any nutritional program. It makes sense to me that preventing or reducing inflammation is a key component to our overall health. The Mayo Clinic found that curcumin can decrease swelling and inflammation, has antioxidant properties, and research suggests that curcumin can prevent cancer, or at least slow the spread of cancer, and in many instances make chemotherapy more effective. It protects our healthy cells even from radiation. TotalWellness.com, where we help you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
All right, guys, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Dr. Daliah, or X, Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, where you could click like and subscribe. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen, and big thanks to Daniel, who is our producer. So I am broadcasting from Stuttgart this week. So we have had some really, really good topics coming in. So we're going to play that for you next. Hold on tight.
So we speak a lot about schizophrenia. One of the latest statistics says 2.8 million U.S. adults are living with it, and we think that's even an underestimation. And consistent treatment is so, so important. And we have our next guest I'm so excited about is Desiree Matthews. psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner who is here to talk to us about how complex schizophrenia is and what amazing options we have to help treat this chronic disorder. Desiree, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Wow. So talk to us about what you are seeing with your patient population.
Yeah, so with schizophrenia, I worked 8 years in community mental health, treating a lot of adults living with schizophrenia. And unfortunately, one issue with schizophrenia is that we need consistent treatment and early treatment, early diagnosis. And oftentimes in chronic disorders, hypertension, diabetes, including schizophrenia as well, it's hard to take medication every day. Dr. Daliah, I don't know if you've ever forgotten to take any of your medication, but this is common. And we really need modern treatments for schizophrenia that allow reduction in those daily need for medication dosing.
So true, so true. And you are so much more eloquent than I am when I speak about schizophrenia. Can you talk to my listeners about what it is?
So schizophrenia is a chronic brain disorder, and it's characterized by clusters of symptoms, including hallucinations, so experiencing voices or visual hallucinations, things that other people don't experience. It also can include delusions, so false beliefs. It also can change the way people interact, discuss, talk, learning, memory, mood disturbances. It also can cause anhedonia or lack of pleasure or interest in things that somebody used to enjoy. So it really affects all facets of an individual's life.
Mm-hmm. And what I seem to find is many individuals with schizophrenia may isolate. And when the family wants to get them seen and possibly diagnosed, they might have agoraphobia, they might have other issues that are precluding them from going to get care. And so, there's a big need for us to reduce the stigma around getting treated for mental health conditions.
Oh, 100%. There's a lot of myths and misconceptions when it comes to schizophrenia, as well as that stigma. And that's why I'm really happy to be able to be here with you to talk about it and partnering with Johnson & Johnson to destigmatize, to let people know there are acceptable treatment options that can help reduce the relapses, delay relapses of schizophrenia, including LAI treatments or long-acting injectable treatments.
Love it, love it. So let's talk about some of those, if you don't mind, Desiree. I appreciate this.
Yes, so when it comes to long-acting injectable treatments, for instance, J&J, we have options that include treatment every 1 month called Invega Sustenna. We also have Invega Trinza, which is an option for individuals that are adults living with schizophrenia to receive treatment every 3 months or 4 times a year. And then lastly, we have Invega Hafyera, which is an every 6-month injectable option. So potentially adults living with schizophrenia can receive just 2 treatments a year, and that's cutting it down from 365 days if an individual is taking oral medication. Of course, it's important that with any medication, including these J&J LAIs, that you talk to a healthcare professional about all the risks and all the benefits associated with treatment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, including those barriers. I know many people are apprehensive because of cost, or they fear that it won't be covered. What are you noticing in terms of insurance coverage?
So I can speak to my clinical experience here in North Carolina, and luckily, because of the evidence for LAIs is very strong in terms of delaying relapse and helping people manage their schizophrenia symptoms, is oftentimes they are very well covered by insurance, including Medicaid, Medicare, as well as commercial payers. There are also patient assistance foundations out there that if somebody is uninsured or underinsured, they also may be able to access these products.
We're speaking to Desiree Matthews, psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner, who is talking to us about how these patients experience cycles of crisis, disrupt many areas of their life, and how we can tackle the stigma with education, empathy, and with treatments. So, when somebody has some of these symptoms, many people are, again, fearful and apprehensive of going to get a diagnosis. They're like, I don't want anybody to know. I don't want, what is, I know what I suggest, but would love to hear your tips on how to empower people to go, look, I'd like you to evaluate me, I'd like to get some help.
So I think first there is a lot of fear around these symptoms, experiencing it, being a family member and you're seeing a loved one go through some of these symptoms. But I think, and that's why I'm here and glad I'm here on the show, is because we can really inspire hope that there is treatment that can manage these symptoms, and people, in many cases, with early treatment, consistent treatment, especially through the use of LAIs, we can see patients regain some of their, and a lot of their functioning really pre-diagnosis, getting people back, going to school, back in work, enjoying their relationships with partners, with their families. So that's the goal, is really early treatment to prevent some of the functional disability that is associated with schizophrenia. So I would like to really spread that message that there is hope. Encourage people to reach out for help, even if that's, asking a friend, a family member, any trusted healthcare professional to kind of move in the right direction to gain that appropriate treatment.
Mm-hmm. And, getting the family involved is key and very, very conducive. Talk to us about what advice you have for those who have a loved one who may have schizophrenia.
So a lot of times I see individuals that are early on in their diagnosis of schizophrenia. So there are a lot of family members around. And I think one of the consistent themes that I've heard from family as well as patients is that they actually had wished that somebody had offered them an LAI or long-acting injectable treatment option for schizophrenia earlier on, because in many cases, once they are on one, they report, at least in my clinical experience, that it's easier to manage their symptoms because they're not having to worry about taking, a pill every day. I also really recommend that family get involved in advocacy groups, learn as much as you can about schizophrenia and treatment, because ultimately the family is an important advocate when going to these mental health appointments potentially with their loved one.
So true. And, as we spoke about, this is very underdiagnosed. And so being able to help educate the public, will hopefully help get people the care they need. In the final minute, where can my listeners go for more information?
So again, education is key. Knowledge is power in many cases. So there's a great website called treatyourschizophrenia.com. That's treatyourschizophrenia.com. And you can learn more about the symptoms of schizophrenia as well as treatment options, including LAIs.
Love it. Desiree Matthews, we really appreciate all the advice you've given. We can't wait to have you back.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys, don't go away. We'll be right back. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.